This is the story of how my car camping went wrong. I used to work with computers mostly, help desk to be precise. Not my dream job, but it paid the bills. Or so I thought. I was making good money. Things were going great, and I was on track for a promotion. But one day, my manager pulled me aside and broke the news. I was being laid off. The company's going through a tough time, he said, and we just can't keep staff on payroll. At least they offered 2 months of severance. I figured no problem. I had some savings, and I should be able to find another job in no time. Months passed. I applied to everything. Nothing. I sent out application after application, and all I got in return was silence. We've all been there. Desperation set in. I started applying to jobs out of state. Seattle caught my interest, so I began sending my resume there. Eventually, I landed an interview. It was a long drive from Vegas, but I figured I could use the time on the road to clear my head. It was Monday morning, and my interview was set for Tuesday afternoon. Seattle was over 1,000 miles away, at least a 16-hour drive if I followed the speed limit, which, let's be honest, I rarely did, but I had to be careful. Police in Vegas were more relaxed than in other states. I woke up at 3 a.m., showered, and packed a small overnight bag, just some interview clothes and my camera. By 4:30 a.m., I was on the road. The sky was still dark, the world quiet. I stopped by my favorite gas station, QT, grabbed an iced coffee with an extra shot of espresso, and hit play on the Arcane Divine, my favorite horror channel on YouTube. The eerie stories would keep me company and keep me awake. The road stretched endlessly before me, mile after mile, state after state. The drive was peaceful, even enjoyable. Around 4 p.m., after driving nearly 500 miles, I reached Twin Falls, Idaho. Hunger gnawed at me. I had no idea what was good around here, but I figured there had to be a decent steakhouse somewhere. A quick search led me to a highly rated spot. The steak was solid. With some daylight left, I decided to check out Shoshone Falls. I barely made it in time for sunset, but it was worth it. I snapped a few photos, deep oranges and purples reflecting off the cascading water. Then, back on the road. Mountain roads narrowed, shadows from towering trees flickered in my headlights. The road signs became less frequent. Just me, my SUV, and the winding asphalt cutting through the wilderness. I was only 200 miles from Seattle, but exhaustion hit me hard. It was past 2 a.m. These weren't the kind of roads you could afford to doze off on. I decided to pull over and take a nap before I crashed. Literally. Luckily, I had planned for this. My SUV was spacious, and I'd brought pillows and a thick blanket. The nearest hotel was in Seattle, so that wasn't an option. I checked my phone for the closest gas station, 10 minutes away. I kept driving, fighting the exhaustion, until I spotted the faint glow of a gas station sign in the distance. The place looked deserted. A dim light glowed from inside, and a single attendant stood behind the counter. I parked on the side of the building, away from the main lot, far enough to not look suspicious but not completely isolated. I went inside, used the restroom, and grabbed a bottle of water. Back in my car, I folded the back seats down, arranged my pillows, and pulled the blanket over me. I left the engine running and cracked open the moonroof for ventilation. It was freezing, 3 a.m. My body was beyond exhausted. I tried to sleep, then a knock on the window. My heart nearly stopped. I sat up, my pulse hammering. The windows were tinted. Couldn't see who was outside. Another knock. I reached for my phone, hesitated, then cracked the window just enough to see. It was the gas station attendant. "Hey," he said, "if you're just staying for the night, it's fine, but be careful. There've been a lot of car break-ins around here lately." I nodded, muttering a quick thanks. He walked away, disappearing back into the station. I locked the doors, suddenly wide awake. Somewhere out there in the darkness, someone might be watching. I tried to shake off the unease. It was probably nothing, just a warning. Still, I double-checked that my doors were locked. The gas station employee had spooked me, but exhaustion weighed heavier. My body begged for rest. I pulled the blanket over me, took a deep breath, and closed my eyes. Silence. Then, a sound. A faint rustling. At first I thought it was the wind, but it wasn't. It was closer. Something, or someone, was moving outside my car. I held my breath, listening. My SUV was parked away from the main lot, hidden in the shadows. No other cars were nearby. The gas station was the only building for miles. Another sound. This time footsteps, slow and deliberate, crunching on gravel. I sat up, my heart slamming against my ribs. My tinted windows made it hard to see anything outside. I reached for my phone and turned the screen on. The soft glow lit up the interior of the car, but it also made me visible. The footsteps stopped. I turned the phone off. Silence again. Then, tap, tap, tap. My blood ran cold. It wasn't the sharp knock of the gas station employee. This was softer, more deliberate, like someone was testing the glass. My fingers hovered over the ignition button, ready to start the car and floor it. Then I remembered something. The moonroof. I had left it slightly open for ventilation. A shiver ran down my spine. I reached up slowly, gripping the edge, and began to slide it shut as quietly as possible, halfway closed. Then, a whisper, right above me. I didn't catch the words, but there was no mistaking it. Someone was speaking. I slammed the moonroof shut. My breath hitched, and I gripped the wheel with white-knuckled hands. My instincts screamed at me to leave. I turned the key. The engine sputtered. I tried again. Nothing. Panic surged through me. My car had been running fine all day. The battery wasn't dead. I had just been using the engine for heat. Another whisper. This time I understood it. Don't look. I couldn't breathe. The air in the SUV felt suffocating. My skin crawled with the overwhelming feeling that something was staring at me through the windows. I clenched my eyes shut. The whispering continued. Closer. I didn't know what to do. Every instinct told me to run, but I was trapped in my own car. My own sanctuary turned into a cage. Then, something scraped against the passenger side window. A slow, deliberate drag of what sounded like a fingernail. I lost it. I slammed my fist on the dashboard, shouting, "Who's there?" Silence. Then the gas station door creaked open. I turned toward the station. The attendant was standing in the doorway, looking at my car with a puzzled expression. I fumbled for the door handle and threw it open, nearly stumbling as I stepped outside. But when I looked around, no one was there. No footprints in the dirt. No sign that anyone had been near my car. Just the dark, empty road stretching into the wilderness. The attendant took a step toward me. "You okay?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing. "Did you see anyone?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" I hesitated. I didn't know how to explain it without sounding crazy. The whispers, the tapping, the voice that had told me not to look. Instead, I just said, "I think someone was outside my car." The attendant's face darkened. "That happens sometimes." A chill ran through me. "What?" He motioned for me to follow him back inside the gas station. My legs felt heavy as I walked. The fluorescent lights inside cast a sickly glow, buzzing softly. "People stop here overnight all the time," he said, leaning against the counter. "Truckers, road trippers, people passing through. Sometimes they hear things, see things." I waited for him to say he was joking, that it was just some local legend meant to scare out-of-towners, but he didn't. Instead, he lowered his voice. "A few years ago, a guy stayed here in his car just like you. Next morning, we found his SUV doors wide open. His stuff was still inside. Wallet, phone, everything." I swallowed. "And him?" The attendant just shook his head. "Never found him." I stared at him. He wasn't smiling. I glanced back at my car, my heart pounding. My body was still buzzing with adrenaline, but one thing was clear. I wasn't staying here any longer. I muttered a quick thanks, rushed back to my car, and tried the ignition again. This time it started immediately. I didn't question it. I threw the car into drive and tore out of that gas station, gravel spraying behind me. I drove straight to Seattle without stopping again. When I finally pulled into the city at dawn, my body was exhausted, but my mind was racing. I kept thinking about that voice, that whisper, "Don't look." And the worst part? I hadn't. I had listened, and I still don't know what would have happened if I hadn't.